Okay, welcome in everybody. Welcome to the Women's Wellness Network and welcome here to our guest today. Hello, how are you doing, Corinna? How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. It is a beautiful day as it is there with you, as I can see. So, where are you in the world?
So I'm in Southwest Arkansas, a place I never in my life imagined I'd be. I'm from South Florida, so being here was like totally guided and driven, but it is honestly, of all the places I've been in the country, it is the most beautiful.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, you showed me a little bit around there, and just even your backdrop while you're sitting there is peaceful and serene and wonderful. And I think that kind of goes along with what you do and what you have to offer. So why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself? Let us know what it is that you do in the world.
Okay. Well, my name's Corinna. We just got into that. And I do a lot of things. I just, ever since I was a little kid, I just felt like I wanted to change the world. And I was a little bit of a different kind of child. And I'm still a different kind of human, but I've learned to embrace that as a gift. So I have done lots of things. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. My most recent thing I'm doing is women's mental health retreat. So I have a big focus and emphasis on self-empowerment and, taking charge of your own mind and helping people to basically dismantle the conditioning that they're not even usually aware of that they have experienced and helping them to kind of go past the symptoms being the anxiety, the depression, the intrusive thoughts, the lack of boundaries. Those are just the symptoms that come from a belief system. So helping them to actually get to that belief and then be able to dismantle that belief and create a new belief in its place and support and nurture that new belief. That's the main root of my program that I teach. I go into a lot of different things about how our body is speaking to us all the time, and our emotional body and our physical body are connected, and we can use them um, as a way of getting to know ourselves better and knowing what's going on, especially in the areas of emotions, because our minds do, especially when we experience things when we're younger that we can perceive as a threat, our mind may actually block us from remembering what it was, but we will still have the emotional responses. So I help people to basically get past the haziness and figure out what the belief is and figure out, where it came from and how to process it, how to feel the emotions, how to find understanding, how to go through the process of forgiveness. So that's like my version of shadow work. I've spent many years fine tuning um, lots of different systems. Everything is kind of come from me, from within me, I guess. I myself am an intuitive. I receive a lot of guidance from my higher self. Um, Higher self can be whatever you want it to be. It's the part of the universe that's energetic that talks to all of us. We can see it as God, we can see it as another piece of us, we can see it as the universe, we can see it as a spirit guide. It doesn't really matter. It's that we are receiving that information and using it to guide ourselves forward. So that's where most of my information has come from, and I've applied it to my own life. Truth is extremely important to me. So as I've gone through the years of my own healing journey, um, I really, really just wanted to understand how our mind works. And I can get into that in a little bit if you like about my journey and what led me here.
Yes.
But my biggest thing was really, I want to understand this and be able to break it down to its finest principles so that I can essentially create a mathematical equation that I can share with everybody.
Right.
And that's been my focus. I a little bit about my background and what led me here. Um, I was born into a really difficult situation. I had a mother that really hated me from the moment I was born, and it's okay. Everyone makes that face, but
Yeah.
honestly, I'm so grateful because I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today. So I'm very grateful for my mother and the experiences I had because though she may not have realized that she was helping me, she was. Um, but and that's all about growth right there. There it is, being able
Right.
to find the beauty in
Totally.
something.
Yeah.
But that situation gave me an opportunity to experience what it was like to be disconnected from love and to be disconnected from the world. I was very isolated as a child. I wasn't allowed to have friends or toys or anything. I had more of like a Matilda kind of life, if you will. Uh, so it gave me a unique perspective. Um, of course, there was a lot that had to be
Right.
healed, absolutely.
Yeah.
But coming out the other side of it, I actually wrote and published my first book last year, and I go through this journey, and I also share a lot of tools that I learned along the way. But for me, the cool part about it was that, and I would never have said years ago that this was the cool part about it. The cool part about it is that it really was a solo journey.
Mm.
So while I was in it, I was just, looking up to the sky, like, why can't I just have somebody? Why can't someone come and help me? Why can't I? But I'm so grateful because I got to go through this entire journey completely from my perspective, without anybody else's, I guess, guidance. Of course, we're always learning through the people around us, but direct guidance. Um, so for me, it was a big mental health journey. I was at various points in my life, I was diagnosed with CPTSD, ADHD. When I was younger, it was oppositional defiance. At one point, it was schizophrenia. At one point, it was bipolar. It was just all the things to try and figure out why I was so different.
Right.
Um, and it turns out I was just the way I was supposed to be. But then it turned out that I also needed to realize and embrace who I am and who I was meant to be. So, through all those diagnoses, I went through the process of experiencing what it is like to have the thought that turns into the belief that there is something wrong with you and feeling limited. For example, most of my childhood, I was on medication for attention deficit disorder. However, I don't have attention deficit disorder. I actually focus better than most people. And just understanding myself and the way that my brain worked, I didn't I didn't know that before. I wasn't given those tools, and I it wasn't something that was developed. So I just assumed there was something wrong with me. So I kind of just had this belief adopted that I couldn't focus, which caused me a lot of anxiety in life, feeling like I was going to drop the ball on things and wasn't able to follow through. Turns out I'm actually really good at follow through and I'm really good at structure. I just needed to know myself and how my brain works.
Right.
So, and the same with PTSD. I had a doctor look at me in my face after I had had a serious mental breakdown and just tell me, you need these medications. And, he's like, he flat out told me, you're not going to get past this on your own. And those were the magic words because I'm the type of person that would tell me I can't.
Yep.
I will prove you wrong. And I did absolutely on my own, no psychiatric help. I dismantled everything. And I've spent the past decade of my life going in and facing the things that scare me and understanding my anxieties and understanding my fears. And I went from being somebody who was so paranoid, so on the edge all the time, so limited in my mindset to being somebody who most people would describe as extremely grounded, and just present. So it's been beautiful, but it's also been really cool because, my husband was in the Marine Corps for so long and he was in the infantry. And there's obviously, with that environment, there's an entire community of people who struggle with PTSD. It's realizing that they don't have to be stuck,
Right.
and that makes me really, not just for that community, because the more of the work that I've done in life, the more I've realized that everybody struggles with these. To some degree, everyone is struggling with this anxiety. Everyone is struggling with this limitation of self, fear driving the life, emotions driving the life, rather than being a conscious driver of your life, and having intentional and conscious thoughts and being able to create your life, knowing exactly what you're creating. Because when we don't know our beliefs and we don't know ourselves, we're creating no matter what. It's
Right.
just we don't know what we're creating. So, I laugh when I see people offering classes to teach people how to manifest, like how to access a part of them that can create. And I just laugh because I'm like, you're creating whether you like it or not.
That's so
So
true.
yeah,
That
it's
is
it's
so
just
true.
about exactly. It's just about being a conscious participant in that. Your energy's doing it regardless, but wouldn't you want to have a say?
Right.
So yeah. So and it's really cool though, because I always tell people, especially when I do my retreats and I've taught workshops for many years, and I've done 13 sign astrology for which is a totally different type of astrology, and I've kind of made my own system focusing on mental health, but I've done that for over 10 years. Um, People often they wow, I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You've said a lot of things, and there's a lot of
Yeah,
things you're unpacking there. And I could go back right to right to the beginning. And I appreciate how much you because I see that in myself. I know exactly where you're coming from. Figuring it out for yourself, know thyself, to unravel,
yes,
to realize what is actually who I am and why I am the way I am. And then once you know, it's so much easier to just deal with yourself, never mind the world,
yes,
right? And then
yes,
you talked about your mom and that situation and being in having somebody else decide, I guess, for you who you are, what, including your doctors and that kind of thing, it's a hindrance. It's not a
yeah,
benefit. It's right. I know when we're little, we're supposed to have direction and things like that, and that's unfortunate that um, in the past it's been that way. And I see
right,
nowadays more people are starting to come online to help the young people, to help little people understand what's happening, who they are, why they are. And I mean, medications work when they work, when we need them for certain things. But I know for myself, I was told the same thing. You're not going to be any better. You're going to be as you
right,
are and just go home and be that. Well, that's not
right.
enough. I don't want to just exist. I want to live. And that's what you're doing. You're living. You have unraveled that little mystery of yourself. And now you're ready to pass that on to the world, which you've been doing
Yeah.
for a while, obviously. And I think that's a thing. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're the little beliefs and the little thing, it's just over time, these little pieces of
They
society,
layer.
parents, yeah, they like over top of us and we get lost under there. So having a guide, someone like you who's been through some things and understands some things, that really helps people to open up, to understand themselves and to realize that they're okay, they're normal. And I mean, we're all screwed up. I mean, ultimately, we're all, we all have challenges, we all have things we need to get through. And,
Yeah.
a lot of us get labeled with this or that, diagnosis or whatever it is. But as you said, you can get through it. You don't need to have all the things. You just need to have the information. You need to have the knowledge. You need to have the guidance. And I see that's you.
What you what you really need to, and I explain this all the time to people I work with, because people will come to me and they'll tell me that I changed their life. And I always tell them, and I find this to be very, very, very important. I didn't do anything. What you need more than anything is the desire and the will to live. You need the desire and the will to thrive. And it's not, it's like you just mentioned, it's not just about existing here. It's about living here. It's about the experience. I mean, you can have 50 years where you're sick and miserable, or you can have 20 years where you are in the best health and on every adventure that crosses your path. And I would take the 20 years personally, because it just really comes down to the quality over the quantity. And if people could understand that this information lives within all of us. I'm not a religious individual. That's just not like my path is taking me in the space it has. But one of my favorite people is Jesus, because he expressed this to us. I personally believe that it was about living in the way that he was living, not about following or not about worshiping, because what he was saying was, mind your own business and just live in love. That's what he was saying. Worry about yourself, mind your own business, be kind to everyone around you because everyone around you is experiencing something, and just focus on yourself. And we can all do that. We all have the power to do that. You don't have to be a magician. Where there's nobody who's more capable than anybody else in this world. And I often say, if I were to pinpoint the one thing that took our world out of balance, it would have been the exact moment that we decided that hierarchy should be a thing. Because when there is hierarchy, there is powerlessness. You're not yourself. When you start thinking through the lens of somebody else, when you start thinking in terms of, how is this person going to perceive me because they may have power over me, and you start making choices based on them, you have given your power away.
Right.
And the same happens in the other direction, where you look at somebody and you feel more empowered than them. You're not acting yourself. You're not choosing to make conscious choices. You're making choices out of what you think you might be able to get away with. Because does this make sense?
Totally. Oh yeah. Totally it does. Yeah, like the ego self saying, "Oh, I'm good. I'm doing this stuff. I'm empowered. I'm better than them. I can help them. I can lead them." That kind of thing. That doesn't get anybody anywhere. That's like the backwards way of doing it. And then to, as you said, giving your power away, well, you're not leading yourself. You're putting yourself further down in the layers without discovering who you are. It's so easy. I mean, I'm guilty. I did that myself. Being in a codependent relationship and in my marriage and in my life, basically, before, and just really deciding, realizing, taking each side of those things and coming back to the center and being who we actually are. So when you work with people, I know you have your retreats. So do you do like workshops and do you do one-on-one? Like how do you work with people specifically?
All of the above.
Okay.
So for the retreat specifically, it's a 4 day, 3 night thing. I do have one in Peru as well in May, and that one's 5 days because, with the travel and everything. And then I love to throw adventures in there. But for the ones that are stateside, it's 4 days, 3 nights. And basically when we get there, you guys will get your one-on-one time. So I do, as I mentioned earlier, I do 13 sign astrology, and I've kind of developed my own way of doing it, guided towards mental health. So the purpose of that system is to help you to see yourself from a neutral perspective, because we can't work with something unless we've accepted what we are. If we think we're something else and we're always trying to fine tune that something else we think we are, and we haven't yet accepted what we are, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
So that's the purpose of that system. The way that I can read charts and kind of channel the information helps me to see where you're at, where your deepest wounds are, what obstacles and cycles that you're kind of going through in this life, to find a focal point for the weekend. So that's very one-on-one. And from then on, it's every day. Our itinerary is pretty packed. Now I do pack in there something I call me time, which is a time where people are able to go in color, to play the sound bowls, to go on a nature walk, whatever, take a shower, whatever it is that gives them time to process. But we have several workshops that we go through. We have a big focus on the mind and balance and understanding how things work. And my first workshop is all about the chakras from a different perspective, to help people understand how their energy is working with each other, and how to use your body to understand what may be trapped and what's going on. We have a workshop on self love where we're talking about healthy boundaries, where we're understanding attachment styles, where we're understanding our relationship with ourselves is a direct impactor and an indicator of the relationships we're going to have with other people. So a lot of the women that I deal with, they struggle with, having a healthy relationship, healthy marriage, healthy things. And so it's not even focusing. We're not even going to focus on that. We're going to focus on our relationship with ourselves, because what we've got going on in here is what we're creating out here. So we work on that. We work on the shadow work. I have a technique that a 6 step process where I've kind of created my own analogy to make it super easy for people to understand how to go within themselves, how to find the belief, how to process everything. We have a fear workshop where we discuss fear and what part of the mind that it's using, and how to basically counteract it. Um, and a big, 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 big emphasis on what I teach is balance. And you kind of just mentioned it. It's like you said, you kind of go over here and you have this experience, and you go over here and then you come back to the middle. That is the key to life. Literally everything in the universe operates this way. So it's helping people to understand that when they've gone a little too far this way, how to bring themselves back to the center without having to do that pendulum swing of extremes to thrust themselves back in the other situation, and then missing the center point every single time. So with this, I have typed up lots of handouts, lots of hands-on stuff. So when people come to my retreats, they get a packet that has all kinds of extra helpful stuff, a journal, a pen, a copy of my book. They get all of these things so that they can be prepared for the weekend. I am always aware that it's a lot of information. So while I lecture, I always give all the key points for them to take home in a handout. It's already done. And then the most exciting part about this is that we are with nature. We're going on field trips. We are doing this. My last retreat I just did, we were hiking we did our workshop at the base of a waterfall with the waterfall in the background. And then at the end, we did the hike to the top of the waterfall. So I love to incorporate nature and I love to incorporate fun because as adults, one of the biggest things that we struggle with is a sort of a block or an imbalance in our sacral chakra where we've forgotten that it's safe to have fun, that it's safe to be creative, to be adventurous. So I really try to emphasize that and creating a safe space where women feel safe to express what's going on inside. Because if they pour out their vulnerabilities, then and they realize that everyone around them is also feeling in this way, they can now connect with one another to kind of support. And at the end of the retreats, they all want to stay in contact. I set up like a group text and I have a Facebook group just for retreat participants. And they're all feeling now bonded with this. And it's great because now there's this community of women that went through this experience together and they're supporting each other. So, things that we talked about, like goals that they had, now they're like, look what I just did. And then it's like someone's excited because they knew how important that was to them. And then they're all sharing. So that's what the retreats are all about. I do also do one-on-one coaching. I do what I call shadow therapy sessions, where it's basically me helping you to shadow work. We focus on one thing that's over the phone. It's through Zoom, however you prefer. So I do that. I do the 13 sign astrology readings. Those are really good for if you're just really lost and feeling like you need some sort of guidance. That's a great place. I mentioned earlier, I'm an intuitive, so I don't just read the charts. I also channel information that can be very helpful for people. Um, and then other things I teach holistic health. I have a 4 week holistic health coaching course, which helps people how to basically learn how to use their food as medicine, they don't have to be overwhelmed with everything. They don't have to feel like it's so expensive to eat healthy. It's actually not. But I basically help them to understand how to forego supplementation and all that, and how to find what they need in their food and how to understand the different processes of what the body needs. I told you I'm like a jack of all trades. I
You
do like
are. I know
so
it's
much.
amazing. I think it's amazing. That's
Thank
what makes you
you.
well-rounded, and it's easier for you to be able to have more things to offer because everybody's different. So when you can tap into something that's, you feel like they could use, but maybe,
Yeah,
Jane needs that, but Sue doesn't. So yeah,
exactly.
it's perfect to have so many modalities, and because you've gone through it yourself, you've used them on yourself, and that's trauma informed, I guess, is really the best therapy to have somebody who's been through the stuff, who actually gets it, who, you can, the resonance of the energy that comes from that. I'm a big believer in that. You know, we everybody heals themselves, but
Yeah,
if we can feel that resonance from somebody else, and you've got your groups there with after the retreats, and they're all joining together, and they've already felt each other, so they know that that healing energy that comes. It doesn't, you don't have to be together. You can be over a Zoom, you can be on the phone, and it still works. And I think that,
yeah,
I mean, that's a beautiful way to be. And I love that you have those after groups, because they're not just helping each other, because now they're this little um, pod of seeds that are going to explode into the world, right? They're
yes,
going to touch their family and their friends with the things that
yes,
and they're going to be different people. So that is changing the world, and that is, I'm on board with that. Let's keep doing that.
yeah.
It's
I
amazing.
actually I had a woman who just went through one of my retreats yesterday. She sent a message to the group chat because I stay present in these group chats too, so that I can make sure that it stays guided in a positive growth direction. And she had said that she was so proud of herself because she just took her personal trainer through a personal Reiki session. So she taught him how to visualize his chakras. He or she, I'm not sure what the personal trainer was gender wise, but how to go and balance the chakras. And she was so proud of herself. And it lit my heart up because I just see this network. Like I've seen the vision of this network for so long where it's like me personally, single-handedly as a child, I thought I was going to change the entire world, like with my hand in everything. Like I had big hopes and desires. I had to be knocked down a little bit to realize, where I can go with it. But what's really cool is I've been seeing this vision of this network where it's like, okay, so for example, you come across me and you're struggling somewhere and I bring you some form of guidance that you allow yourself to accept, right? So it unblocks that path for you. And then because of your joy, you see somebody else struggling there. So you pass it to them. And now that person passes it to someone and they pass it to someone and someone and someone and someone. And think about all the branches. It's like a family tree. We can touch the whole world. Like we really can. We don't have to be in every state, in every city, and talk to all of the 8 billion people, but everybody has somebody that's somewhere. And I tell people this all the time. My guys used to say this to me, and I used to get so angry. I'm not even gonna lie. I used to get so mad when they would say, all you need to do is be you. You're inspiring just by being you. And I'd get so mad because I'm like, but I need to do something. And I was always doing something. I just always felt like it wasn't enough. That was part of my own process. But I've started to see it because my whole life, my younger years, it was a whole lot of rejection for being the person that says the hard thing, for
Right.
being the person that will point something out, that will show up and be silly, that isn't afraid to ask a question in a room full of people who are nervous to ask a question. And there was so much rejection on my end from a young age with that. And I had to process through that. But because of my like dedication to myself, like my own, like I always have had a very strong level of self-love. Like I can't not be authentic. So I still, even though it hurt me and I knew I was gonna get rejected, I still did the things. And now at this stage in my life, after I've created this whole system that I've created to help people, I get people so often just telling me, thank you for being you.
Mhm.
Thank you for being the person that will say the thing. Like I have clients all the time that are like, no one would have ever said that to me because I will look you in your face and I will say, hey, your problem is that you're being unaware of yourself. You're not taking accountability here. And that's okay. We don't need to bring shame into the picture. We need to move forward. But people get scared to say stuff like that to people because they don't want to offend them. And I'm like, if I'm here taking my time to help you and you're here because you want help, I'm going to give you the full picture.
Right.
And I have people tell me, like, thank you so much for that. And it's made me realize on my own journey that, like, I was made to be this way on purpose. And I'm grateful that I didn't choose to, like, hide in the shadows like I wanted to so many times. Because it's lonely out here sometimes when you're the person that's always, you can't walk in a room and not be noticed. Like that can be lonely sometimes, as weird as it may sound. So, yeah, it's just a lot in a good
A
way.
lot. It is a lot,
Yeah.
but it's a lot in a good way. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it totally is. And okay, if our women want to connect with you or you find out more about you, how can they do that?
So they can always visit my website, which is www.holisticmindbodyandsoul.com. And on there, there's plenty of ways that they can contact me. I do have a Facebook page, Holistic Mind, Body, and Soul. But the website's just easier because there it shows all my services. You can buy my book there. You can read about different things there. So that's a good space. I did start doing like a blog a little while ago, but then I realized, that's just not really my thing. So there's a few videos on there of me talking about stuff, but it's not really my thing. I don't have to adapt fully to all the changes in life. I don't really care for the YouTube presence. So you'll find a couple of those, but really it's you can chat with me and I will there's a spot on there for people to do like a 15-minute consult that's just free. I'll just give you a call and then you tell me where you're at and I'll tell you what I can offer. And if you feel like I'm the right fit, then we can do something. And if not, that's okay.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah,
Beautiful. That's perfect. Okay, and we missed one thing. We better not go without talking about it
yeah,
briefly at least. Your book.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your book, please.
Yeah, so I started writing that book probably about 5 years ago, and it was too painful. Like I kept picking it up and putting it down. A lot of my journey, which you'll find in the first chapter of the book, I talk about this, had been about, I'm gonna say past tense, trying to forget to move forward. And I was pretty stubborn with it, so I took it pretty far until I realized that that's not gonna ever heal anything. So the answer was to actually turn around and look at it. So my higher self, my guidance kept pushing me towards writing this book. But I didn't want to write it because I didn't want the rejection all over again. The experiences that I had as a child have been very gaslit, have been very, I mean, for obvious reasons, no one wants to admit that they were a part of those things. but I was scared of the response I would get from my family members and from, just it's a lot. I've always been a private person to like put all of your stuff out there. But I kept getting this push, and then it got to the point where I started to realize that like if I didn't do it, I was always going to be limited there, and I don't like to feel limited. So I sat down in for 2 weeks straight, 2 weeks straight, front to back, wrote the book, edited, sent it off to the publisher. I self-published it. Like I didn't even want to wait the process of submitting it to a publisher or anything because like I knew it just needed to be done then. I wasn't going to change my mind in that way, so I just did it. And so the book itself, it's the first half of the book. It's broken into two halves. The first half is basically my story front to back. Um, and I chose to share that for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to basically help people to feel related to. I wanted them to see that no matter how hard life may seem, no matter how hopeless things may be, there's always a silver lining. There's always something that you can do about it. So, and you don't, just because you were born into a crappy situation does not mean that that's what you're destined to experience for the rest of your life. It's literally a personal choice. And that's one of the main reasons I chose to share my story because, you know, I legitimately had on a psychiatric evaluation when I was 15 years old. I had a doctor say that they had projected that I would be on drugs and in prostitution by the age of 18 based on the experiences that I had and the mental state that I was in at the time. And I'll tell you what, I didn't get a hold of that paperwork until I was in my 20s. And it literally made me break down crying because I was like, this is how someone saw me. But also because it was like at that time I was married. I was in a whole different situation. I was finally in a stable space. Like, my my husband was an angel, he's given me all that. So it's like it also gave me an understanding that like I made this choice. I made lots of choices that didn't lead me there. But I wrote that because I wanted people to realize that like you in any instant, all it takes is you to make a choice. And with one choice, that's an action. Action is the language of the universe. Like one action, you know what I mean, turns into another opportunity, an action in that direction, another opportunity. And before you know it, you won't even realize it, but you're in an entirely different space. So that was one of the main reasons I wanted to write that. Second half of the book is tools for people and basically just insights that I think that people don't think about often. So there is information in there. And I'm an analogy teacher. Like I love to teach with analogies. So I try to make everything relatable. So we talk about projection and conditioning, we talk about belief systems, we talk about fear, we talk about self-love, we talk about boundaries, we talk about forgiveness, we talk about all these different things that I just think that there are questions and areas of life that people don't often consider. Maybe just because life is busy, maybe just because they didn't know how to ask the right question. So I kind of put all of that in there to kind of plant seeds to get people to start thinking in those areas to basically look and reflect inside and go, okay, well, where's all this applying to me?
Right.
So that's how my book is. I am in the process actually of writing another book. No promise on when it's going to be done because I'm I'm knee deep in it and there's a lot of chapters. But yeah, I this is where I'm at.
Well, that's amazing. That's a lot of stuff and you have so much to offer and you've already, we've already got a lot of stuff out there. So you have plenty of things for people to sink their teeth into and discover about you. So Women of the Women's Wellness Network, we will put all of Corinna's information into the comment section so that you can connect with her, find out more about her, maybe look into her retreats. I looked into her website and I know she's going to Peru in May, is it? May
Yep.
2025? Okay,
Yep.
so we want to know a little bit more about that. Do you have um, there's a link in your website for that, is there? For us to find more
There,
information?
there is a page there, and it's basically the Peru is a little bit different than the States one. It's the same curriculum we're teaching, but so there's two different retreats that are back to back. One is a couples retreat focused completely on um, team skill building between you and your significant other, communication, focusing on a relationship. And the other one is a women's wellness mental health retreat. With those, like I said, it's an additional day. And the adventures we're going on are a little bit different. Like we're going to be horseback riding in the mountains to a waterfall. Like we're going to be doing lots of things. We're going to be connecting with Andean shamans as part of it. So I just loved adding in that cultural aspect to it while we're in Peru. And then for the couples one, they do like a little ceremony, kind of like, I guess if you're married, you could see it as a renewal of vows. I guess if you're not married, you could see it as like a celebration of your relationship, but where they have like their authentic music, and the shaman does like a little, like a little blessing of the relationship, and they have a buffet and all kinds of different things. So I really, really went above and beyond to try and make all of these retreats, memorable experiences.
Right. And sounds like a little bit unique, which is interesting also because there's many retreats out there in the world, but when you discover one that's a little bit unique and speaks to you, yeah, you should go check that out. So Women of the Women's Wellness Network, as I said, we will put all the information into the comment section and definitely check it out because as she said, she's even got couples uh, retreats. And, you know, a lot of us are in relationships, so that could be important also. It's not just about us women. Sometimes we got to remember about our significant others and
Yes.
keep those relationships in good check. So, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we go today?
Honestly, I feel like everything that needed to be said here just kind of flowed through me. So I feel pretty good about it. Yeah. And
Beautiful.
thank
Okay.
you for reaching out.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So I suppose we're complete then. So, Women of the Women's Wellness Network, until next time, thank you for watching. And of course, be well. And thank you so much for Corinna. Thank you for coming today.
Of course.